Night was falling. In the corner of the laboratory, between the shelves, a pale man shuffled through his notebooks. His hair was snow-white, his eyes weary, his fingers trembling. Thomas Alva Edison, at the end of his life, was confronting his own shadows. Years ago, he had been exalted as the man of light, but now the darkness was stronger. "I brought light," he murmured. But the names written in the notebooks, the notes hidden between the lines, whispered something else to him. What if you only stole the light of others? When he was born in 1847, in a small town in Ohio, no one knew that his name would be etched into the future. His childhood was buried in silence. At the age of 6, illnesses and faulty treatments had left him almost completely deaf. That silence was not a curse for him, but rather a doorway to seeing the world from a different angle. Neighbors called him the strange child, but his mother Nancy always stood by him. "The things you hear in your mind are more valuable than what others hear, Tom. Don't stop listening to them." At school, he was labeled mentally deficient. His mother pulled him out and taught him at home. Edison buried himself in books for hours, exploring the worlds of Newton, Faraday, and other scientists. This curiosity, ignited at a young age, became the fire of his life. To help his family, he started selling newspapers. While running through trains, he also set up a small laboratory in one of the wagons. His experiments with chemicals once caused an explosion. The wagon caught fire and Edison was thrown out. His hearing worsened a little more, but something else ignited in his mind. Science was worth the risk. Young Edison found work as a telegraph operator. The electric signals traveling along the wires were like magic to him. He spent his nights tinkering with circuits. He often failed, but he learned from his mistakes. When he arrived in New York, he had less than $5 in his pocket. One day the stock ticker broke down and no one could fix it. Edison examined it carefully and had it working within minutes. From that moment on, his name spread quickly. He was no longer an unemployed youth, but seen as the inventor of the future. In 1876, he established his own laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey. It soon became a world-famous invention factory. Newspapers dubbed him the Wizard of Menlo Park. The phonograph, an improved telephone, the electric pen, mining devices. Everything that emerged from there seemed like a miracle. But behind the curtain was another truth. Edison had dozens of assistants, engineers, and technicians working alongside him. Often the ideas came from them, were shaped by Edison's vision, and were then presented to the world under his name. Edison did not even hide this. "My method is simple. I gather the best brains, process their ideas, and present them to the world. The age of the lone inventor is over." Yet history forgot the names of the assistants. Only Edison was remembered, and this is where the shadows began to form. In 1877, when Edison introduced the phonograph, the world was in awe. For the first time, the human voice could be recorded and played back. Newspapers proclaimed him the wizard of the modern age. The phonograph elevated Edison's reputation to the skies. But Edison's eyes were on something bigger, light itself. Today, the invention most closely associated with Edison is the incandescent light bulb. He is known as its creator, but the truth is more complicated. Decades before Edison, Humphrey Davy, Warren de la Rue, and Joseph Swan had already built prototypes of incandescent lamps. Edison's difference was making the system practical. A durable carbon filament, a vacuum-sealed bulb, and an electrical distribution network. Edison made light available to the public. But this success was not without shadows. In 1878, Joseph Swan in England had already patented the same invention. A lawsuit followed. The resolution was unusual. The Edison-Swan United Company was formed, forcing the two rivals into partnership. Yet in the public's mind, only one name remained: Edison. Joseph Swan and the others were relegated to the dusty shelves of history. Edison was proclaimed the father of light. But in reality, the invention of light was made possible by the work of dozens of scientists. History, however, sought a single hero, and that hero was Edison. In 1884, a young Serbian engineer set foot in America, Nikola Tesla. He carried a letter written by his former employer in Europe, addressed to Edison. This young man is a genius. If you hire him, you won't regret it. Edison was cold toward Tesla at first. The young engineer, dressed in shabby clothes, was shy but sharp-eyed. Yet within days, Tesla repaired Edison's broken machine so quickly that Edison was astonished. But the two men were very different. Edison was practical, fast, and risk-taking. Tesla was a dreamer, visionary, and deeply loyal to scientific principles. For Edison, experimenting was everything. For Tesla, theory and vision guided the way. One day, Tesla made a proposal to Edison. Your direct current system works, but it's inefficient. We should use alternating current. It can send energy much farther with far less loss. Edison's face darkened. Alternating current? Nonsense. If people bring that into their homes, they'll die. Direct current is safe. I built the future on it. Thus, the first sparks of the war of currents were lit. By the late 1880s, the electrical age in America was beginning. Edison championed direct current, DC, while Tesla, supported by George Westinghouse, promoted alternating current, AC. For Edison, this was not just a scientific debate. His empire was at stake. His Menlo Park laboratory, his investors, his electric companies, all were tied to direct current. If alternating current won, everything Edison had built would collapse. Edison launched a dirty war. He began a propaganda campaign to demonize alternating current. He told newspapers, alternating current kills. It slaughters people in the streets. But that was not enough. He staged public demonstrations electrocuting animals with AC, dogs, cats, even an elephant. People watched in horror. Edison's goal was simple: to implant the idea that AC is dangerous. These shows remain among his darkest legacies. The man hailed as the inventor of light was also a merchant of fear. But reality was different. Alternating current was far more practical than direct current. It was cheaper, more efficient, and could be transmitted across much greater distances. When Tesla and Westinghouse lit the 1893 Chicago World's Fair with alternating current, the game was changed. Edison had lost. A C had won. Yet history seemed to erase this defeat from his image. In the public mind, Edison remained the man of light. Edison's deepest shadow was in the ownership of ideas. The phonograph had been developed by a team of engineers, but their names were forgotten. The first light bulb prototypes had been created by Swan and others, erased from history. Even in the film industry, Edison's obsession with control led him to crush his rivals. In the early 1900s, he fought patent wars with inventors developing motion picture systems. Edison's company sought to monopolize the patents for cameras and projectors. Filmmakers who refused to bow fled to California. And so Hollywood was born from those escaping Edison's grip. Edison was passionately devoted to science, but the same cannot be said for mercy. His experiments on animals remain disturbing to this day. To prove the dangers of AC, he killed hundreds of animals with electricity. One of the most infamous cases was the execution of Topsy, an elephant at Coney Island. Whether Edison himself was present is debated, but the act was part of his propaganda machine. While people applauded the inventor of light, there was pain in the shadows. As he grew older, Edison's health declined. His hearing was almost completely gone, his eyesight weakened. But he continued working in his laboratories. Friends said he was obsessive. Once an idea took hold, he would go days without sleeping or eating. At the same time, he grew lonelier. Tesla had long since become a hero of history. Westinghouse was forging his own path. The new generation of inventors shone not under Edison's shadow, but with their own light. Even in old age, Edison tried to nourish his own legend. In interviews, when asked to summarize his life, he would say, "I have not failed. I've just found thousands of ways that don't work." This quote summed up his persistence, but also concealed his shadows. In 1931, Edison passed away. His funeral was grand. The world bid farewell to him as the hero of light. For a few minutes, lights in homes across the country were turned off in his honor. But after the curtain closed, one question remained. Was he truly the man of light, or just a shadow that claimed the light of others? He changed the world, but the price of that change was not paid by him alone. His rivals, his workers, animals, and sometimes the truth itself bore that cost. In his old laboratory at Menlo Park, his notebooks still sit on the shelves. Between the lines are notes, unfinished ideas, erased names. The story of Thomas Alva Edison is not only the birth of light, but also the rise of shadows, because every light creates a shadow. And when Edison lit the brightest light in history, the deepest shadows were born with it.